everybody, and welcome once again to another Still the Show, the podcast or vodcast. I don't even know what to call it. What should we call it, guys? Is it vodcast or podcast? Welcome back anyway. We'll call it a vodcast, I think. Still the Show. This is our 7th episode this year. I'm going to look at the Youth World Championships that have just taken place. But before we do that, I'll do our usual intro. Quick 60 seconds. What's caught your eye, Gareth, or what's you noticed in the world of Petanque?
I think for me, my highlight was probably the Champion of Champions up at Mansfield. First time I've ever umpired there. Really good venue. Never been there before. Great hosts. Thought the competition ran very well. It's always a bit of a friendly, competitive atmosphere, Champion of Champions. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. 10 out of 10. I thought it was a fantastic venue. Really good hosts. All in all, great competition.
Okay, great. What about you, Jamie?
Champion Champions wasn't great for me. I got to be honest. I was a little rusty. I think would be the best, the best interpretation. And literally, I took my ball out of my ball bag and realised, the last time I played the interregionals, and it was absolutely tipping it down, and my ball are literally rusty. So it was metaphorical and physical. I think for me, it played a try-away a couple of weeks ago versus Anglia versus East Midlands. That was really good. Yeah, really good. I enjoyed playing. Played with Keith and played with Jonathan Saul, and it was nice.
That was up at Lutterworth, wasn't it,
yes.
Jamie? I was up there first time this year. I must admit, I had a really great time up there. I did win the competition, which helped. But I just thought the venue was really nice, and we had a really good time there. Very welcoming club. Obviously, they're big into bowls. It's quite interesting, the synthesis between bowls and petanque, which you don't see too often, do you?
No.
Which is a bit surprising when you think about it.
The nice thing for me, I mean, it was the weather wasn't great. It's that time of year now, isn't it? Playing outdoors, but it was really competitive, well played between all the teams. We had a junior team playing, and they didn't win a game, but they played really competitively. All the opposition they played against were really supportive. Encouraged them, and the way that, from the East Midlands and Anglia. So it's great. That's one of those things in our sport, I think sometimes we kind of get overlooked. That people are supportive, even across regions and things. That was nice. It was not.
Well, the thing for me was a bit slightly different event. I went up to the Petanque events party the other Saturday, which was quite a fun event. That's Clive Silver's, I call it a super club, really, because that's what it is. 30, maybe, I don't know, maybe more people involved in that. And of course, a bit like my great friend Tony Richards, Flapper, who sort of started this as well with his own trips abroad. It's a very similar sort of formula, actually. It was just a really nice evening. Drunk a bit too much, woke up with a bit of a bad head the next morning, but it was just a nice night, and it was good to meet people and have a usual chat about stuff. The person I bumped into who really sort of struck a chord with me was Simon Fletcher from Suffolk Coastal, because the time I'd seen him before, they'd just won that Division 2 at Interregionals. Yeah. Remember that, guys?
Yeah.
And I was just saying how joyous he looked about that, and it was a great success given the sort of relative youth of Suffolk Coastal, and great to see that. And I said to him, I was just so pleased to see him so delighted, actually. In winning that. Anyway, what we're going to do, guys, as we said earlier on, is we're going to have a look at the Youth World Championships, which recently took place. I'm going to share a screen in a second, but before I do that, I just thought I'd ask you guys what you thought about the format of that, because the first time it's been held as a doubles, triples, and then what can only be described as truncated precision shooting, I think is the best way to describe it. The advantage being with it, guys, is of course that the federations are asked to have 2 girls, 2 boys, and that guarantees that, unlike before, where although you could have mixed triples, the reality was most of the World Championships I ever saw or went to, it was always dominated by boys, basically, 3 boys playing triples. But what do you think, guys, about that combination and how that worked? Do you think that was a good idea or a bad idea, or was there some stuff that could be looked at? What do you think?
I think it's a good idea. For me, I think it was a good idea in terms of you are encouraging there to be a mixture. I think that so the actual playing formats in terms of triples and doubles was interesting. It was 1 day triples, 1 day doubles, and so it was the focus was 1 day triples, 1 day doubles. The shooting for me, I mean, I don't know whether that was a time thing or it's just very odd. The format is, I just don't get it. I just don't understand what do you get from that? What, you have one shot at this and one shot at that and one shot, and then somebody else has one shot. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I think it's just a bit weird.
What do you think, Gareth?
I thought the triples and the doubles I thought was very good. Quite enjoyed that. Gives everyone a game. There's no fourth player because, you know, everyone's getting a fair whack at the sort of like the doubles. But the shooting, I thought it was farcical. The one thing with shooting is it's that person who can find that consistency and find that rhythm, and it just didn't allow for that. It seemed like a bit of an afterthought. The shooting wasn't going to be a part of the championships, and then I think Nations complained, and so they've put that in. I can understand if that's why they've done it in such a short format, but when I think you qualified if you got 4 points, I think it was, or 5 points. I just thought it was a bit of a joke, to be honest. The other high side of it, the combining the doubles and the triples, I thought was a really nice idea, and the fact that the doubles had to be mixed, I thought was very good. But yeah, shooting, I thought it was a bit of a non-event, really.
I think with the shooting format, if you want to you want to not make it easier, but you want to make it a shorter version of it and make it more easy for the kids or the juniors to get involved in that, you shorten each. You go 6, 7, 8. And then, maybe they only shoot 3 times at those distances, and do something like that. It's just one shot at one discipline, one shot at another. Because there was 2 of them doing it, or even let them have 2 shots. I just think it was a bit of a strange format.
Yeah. Okay. Let's. I think you're both right about the shooting. I think the doubles and the triples concept with a mixed approach is actually a very good one, and one wonders whether that was basically where the FIPJP was thinking they might go in the future with the Olympics, because if you look at the World Games, I think that's the way that the World Games is run, if I'm not much mistaken, where they have that 2-gender mixed format approach. Anyway, let's just have a quick look at what happened at the championships itself. First of all, it was in Isla Cristina. I thought that was a Madonna song to start with, but then I realised it wasn't. It's actually was out in the open air, wasn't it? And once again, probably you're taking a slight gamble on conditions, but probably a little bit cooler than we had down in Santa Susana, Gareth, I think, because that was the hottest place in the world, wasn't it? When we went down there earlier on with the men's triples. But there is always that risk, but I think they got away with it, really, didn't they? This time, I think, with the weather. Who was in the team? Well, there they are. Matthew, Tuamis and Alex was our team, and John Emerson was our coach. Claire Geddes is probably taking this photograph, was the other coach, because obviously there were two coaches required for the doubles. I don't know an awful lot about these young players. Have you guys come across them much? Gareth, you maybe have probably the most from umpiring.
Yeah,
maybe, I don't know.
I think the 2 Amy's I've seen relatively a lot, actually. The last championships we had where it was single sex, for me, the girls quite heavily outperformed the boys, really skill level, and that's where I saw the diamonds in the rough there. And the 2 girls have really tried to develop their game with the other girls as well, seeing them out quite a bit. And the 2 Amy's, in my opinion, probably the creme of that. And yeah, really nice people, first of all, but yeah, definitely putting the effort in to develop their skills. I've had many chat with their parents being dragged to all these competitions. Yeah, really good players. And the 2 lads, I've seen Matthew a few times, but I don't believe I've seen Alex out and about before.
I think the third comment I'd make about this is that Petanque England does seem to have got its, house into order a bit, isn't it, after a period where there wasn't an awful lot going on for our young players, was there? Yeah. Particularly international level. And, I think that's a very positive development, actually. They've been off, haven't they? Played a bit abroad, and now they've entered this competition. That's good news from my perspective, to see that, and to see some numbers coming back again a bit around the country. Obviously, you got Whitnash there, which seems to be like a cauldron of youth development, where they've worked very, very hard. Carol Woodward and others, Glenn and that, worked very hard at that. But that's a very positive thing, I think, which is good news for us. But let's just quickly go on. Sorry, Jamie, I know you're a bit pressed for time. I'll just quickly go through the results. In the doubles, first of all, they were split into 2. I think now I'm trying to remember who played with who. Right? I'm going to say
it was Amy Geddes with Matthew, wasn't it?
That's it. and then Amy Rickman played with Alex. Sorry, so there they were playing in the usual 5-round Swiss. So first of all, we got very narrowly beaten 11 and then 8-11 in the other game, because it was quite strange, because it wasn't often you got the same federation, was it? You could get a combination. In this case, we both got Turkey. So they were very close in those games. And Turkey, I always respect as a federation. They always seem to play pretty well to me. We looked really quite competitive, I felt, in that from the streaming. By the way, the streaming was excellent, wasn't it? I think it was Matthew's dad, wasn't it, that was doing it? And obviously hadn't really done it before, but I thought we did a really good job. It was great.
Any coverage is a positive thing.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I thought we did, a really good job.
Yeah. And then in the next round, we got a game against Mexico, which we just managed to win 12-11. And then I'm trying to find the other, where was that? Oh, yes, it was against Norway, and we won that game 13-7, so that was a good result. Then in the third round, I got it in the wrong order, but you can see it anyway. Yeah. It was Czech Republic's in the other one, and we won that 13-4. So in that third round, we had a couple of good results. So we then went into the fourth round, and we lost a very tight game. Did you see that game, guys? The one against Malaysia? Very tight game. Quite unlucky to lose that 10-9. Anyway, let's not go through too much of the detail. The reality is that when it came down after the 5 rounds, we found ourselves just shaded out, really, didn't we, in terms of qualification. One team was 2 wins, placed 37th. And then the other one was placed 27th on 3 wins. Unlucky, actually, not to qualify, because the BHM was 11, but just got shaded out there. And then there wasn't any Nations Cup in the doubles because of the lack of time, and we obviously weren't involved, but it played through eventually to a win for Madagascar against Belgium. Very good result, I thought, for Belgium to get all the way through to the final. And then we moved on to the Swiss, and that obviously was where you had the 4 and you just subbed in and subbed out.
Yeah, on the triples, yeah.
And we lost the first game. We got France. We lost 13-4. I think, Jamie, you got to shoot off something, haven't you?
Yes,
so,
unfortunately.
Gareth and I will carry on with this bit of the with this bit of the show. Thanks for coming along, and thanks for thoughts at the beginning, Jamie. We'll catch up. We'll catch up soon. And then in the second game, we got really soundly beaten, didn't we, Gareth? 13-2 by Germany. Now, Germany, let's look at that nation this year. They've done fantastically well, haven't they? I mean, every time they turn up, they seem to play extremely well at whatever level to me. I'm quite sure what the secret to their success is. Have you got any inside info on that, Gareth, or talk to any of the German Federation on that at all? Or is it just looking hard at it? I mean, what's the story, do you know?
Nothing sort of like in particular, but I just think they've there's been a money factor. From what I hear, they've got a few grants and stuff, and money's been pumped into the sport. But they've also just, they've been there or thereabouts for a long time, and it just seems like this is their breakthrough year where they've won the men's. They did relatively well in the women's. They won the Squires, doing well in the relatively well in the juniors as well. So yeah, it just feels like a breakthrough year of it, but I don't think it's something that's happened overnight. They've really put the effort in over the years. Yeah,
I mean, clearly they've got a lot of financial backing, and they have quite a large membership. I can't remember exactly how many it is, but it has been growing, because I remember the president there, Michael Duerhoff, who I know well, and a number of people know well. He's got a lot of friends in England. He's obviously worked very hard with the team around him to actually develop the German Federation, and hats off to the German Federation for that. Anyway, had a game against Tahiti, which was a great win for England. Team won, very good result, but unfortunately in round 4 we suffered a fanning at the hands of Turkey, and then when it came to the final round, we managed to shade out Mexico 9-8 in a very tight game. That game, did you see that game, Gareth? I wasn't sure we were going to win it, actually, but we managed to get our noses over the line, didn't we, on that one?
Yeah, it was a good game.
It was, I mean, I think one thing I will say, which always look out for young players is how they get on in those time games where it's very, very tight. I've seen England teams often struggle when it comes down to the pressure of that. But I thought they handled that very well in that particular game. Just as an aside, Gareth, these time games are an hour long for the youth. Do you think that's right, or do you think they should be an hour and a quarter like they are for the senior players?
I think all, regardless, male, female, esquires or senior veterans, they should all be an hour and a quarter for triples. I think you're bringing the timed game factor massively into it too much. If you look at some of those results, some of those rounds, there's quite a few games not getting to 13. Yeah, I don't see why they're not an hour and a quarter. For me, that's the sort of sweet spot for time games for triples.
Yeah, I think you're right. I did actually ask some officials because this applies to the women as well, by the way. I did ask some officials at the Women's World Championships what the reason was for it, and the only thing that they came back with was, young players and women, they play quicker. And I'm thinking, have you noticed that particularly, Gareth, when you've been umpiring, that women play quicker or our young players play quicker? I mean, it just depends on the way the game's going, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. CEP is they're the same all the way through, and I think FI, PJP really should do the same. I think women play particularly quicker, particularly slower. If I think of the slower players in our country, the ones that spring off the top of my head do tend to be females, but I don't think that's across the board. I think both male and female and young do the same sort of like the same grounds to play their championships on.
Yeah, I think that's right. So I spoke to Michael Duerhofer about that, and I think he's been elevated up into the hierarchy of the World Federation. I think he's the sort of guy that would look at something like that and think, well, it does need to be equalised because there's no really reason to have it any different,
Completely agree.
So then we ended up 19th on 2 wins, and what was interesting is that there were 2 teams that got through on 2 wins as a result of the Swiss after the 5 rounds, and we were close there, weren't we? Because if you look at that, Gareth, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams on the 13 BHN at the end of that. I can't really recall when 5 teams ended up equal on the same number of wins like that. And then it came down to FBHN, the sum of the BHNs of who your opponents have played. We didn't quite make it. We're like 4 FBHN points out, very, very close. What it came down to is Germany played Japan in the last round and lost 9-8, which is not an outcome I would have expected. And if Germany had won, they would have qualified. And I think we would have therefore got 1 more point FBHN.
Yeah.
And I think we would have then qualified 16th by my calculations. My thinking about it, Gareth, is looking back over the youth championships. Number 1, it's great to see our young players out there playing again. Number 2, it's great that it seems that there's been quite a bit of preparation as well of the squad, which is good. And they've been competitive, I think, in both the doubles and the triples. So I think there's a lot to be said that's positive about that. Of course, what happened, we dropped into the Nations Cup. We got a bye in the first round, and then we got beaten, unfortunately, to a fanny by Japan in the top 16 of that, after they'd lost the first round in the championship proper. And then it all played out in the triples. What another great win for Italy. They obviously had the Diego Rizzi success at the World Singles in Rome, and now they've added another good win under their belt. That's a really good result against Madagascar, by the way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Such a strong team to see them do that. Yeah, so congratulations to Italy. And then what happened as a result of that, they come up with this combined table at the end, where obviously they gave you points for where you ended up. We did end up there in that 20th position, but I think in many respects it wasn't so much about where we'd finished in this tournament. It was more about participating and looking competitive, Gareth, I think. I suppose it's all about what happens next with our young players in England, doesn't it? I mean, you got any thoughts about what could be done to take things forward?
I think for me, ignore that sort of final table, really. I don't even think it's particularly worth looking at. This was the first real sort of championship where the new regime really had time to work with the players. So yeah, I think to look at that as your first real, where you can bear some of the fruits of your hard work, I think they've done tremendously well. They looked a lot more competitive, I think, in the doubles than the triples, even though the results would suggest the other way around. But I think the doubles looked a lot more competitive. But the two adults that are taking this on, and with the help of like Michelle and John and people, John Geddes and people like that supporting them, I think it's a rosy future. And not only is it good exposure for those juniors, but it's good exposure for those coaches. We've both sort of done heads of delegation and coaching and stuff abroad, and it's a new sort of like thing to do, really, and there's a lot to take in, and especially when you're then trying to control the juniors as well, who would obviously take a bit more of your time up as if you're out there with adults. I think as a whole team, I think they did very well. And when I say team, I mean the coaches and the head of delegation as well. And I think it's a very bright future for them.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that occurred to me was the group that's perhaps where the juniors were previously are maybe our espoirs, Gareth. And I'm just wondering whether resources could be combined a bit to sort of bring the youth and the espoirs together into more of a structure. I don't want to undermine what's been achieved with the young people, but you wonder whether that might be something to think about.
I'm hoping that our aspires, we find that other person. Tony Gates is fantastic with the juniors, and then it kind of died a death for a bit. And I know Chris took it over for a little bit. It just shows the amount of the time and effort put into a category. You do reap the benefits, but they're not going to be immediate. A bit like we just said with Germany, we've got Whit Nash and people like that plugging all this time into the juniors, and we're kind to see the fruits bearing from that. And maybe it is a little too late for the aspires now, but I think the groundwork can be put in for when this group of juniors becomes your aspires to hopefully carry that then through and then through again to adults.
Yeah, I think that's right. And looking forward to next year, there is the combined youth and espoirs European Championships taking place. So that's the 3rd to 6th of October 2026 in Athens. And what a great opportunity that is, going to Athens, a fantastic place to go to. So I think there's a lot to be positive about and planning for. And if we can keep this going, that could be quite a good championship for us. And hopefully with the Aspires back.
Definitely. Again, I'm not convinced that we'll have an Aspires team there, if I'm being honest. But I'm hoping the juniors, they can take on from this. And I just think one other thing to mention is, yes, the juniors have done very well, but I think we also need to mention the support they've had from the membership. We've paid a lot of money in with raffles and events into the juniors to pay for trips abroad and things like that. And the latest raffle that we donated a shirt to from Petanque 365 raised like 4,500, I think it was, off the top of my head. And
yeah, brilliant. It's brilliant.
That's all down to the membership. I'm very glad that there was someone streaming out there, because it was a nice little reward for the membership. They've put this money into the juniors, and it's nice to then be able to watch what you've invested in.
Well, what I said in a recent head of delegation report, in fact, both the ones I wrote this year, where I said, look, if you look at streaming, it's not just about showing our members how our players are competing and them seeing that, particularly if they've been helping them out financially. But it's also very important technically for coaches to be able to look back at those matches and see what you can learn from it. The other thing I think which is quite important for us is that, little old England needs a bit of exposure, and we've got some very good players and they deserve that exposure. And a lot of looking at the number of views I know from the Women's World Championships and what you achieved in Rome, when you look at thousands of people that watch those streams. I mean, I obviously don't know what happened with the young players, but I reckon there was probably still a lot of views, and that gives those players exposure, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think the two things I'll say about streaming is I completely agree with you about, coaches and players looking back. When I've been umpiring sort of domestic things, if I know that I've been called over to do a measure or a decision in a game that you'll say like you or Tim streaming, I always go back and look at myself doing it, see if I did it right, see how I approached it, just as my own learning aid. Completely, it can be used for that, for players and coaches alike. See, when I went to Italy, I turned up to register, and the first lady I bumped into, well, two people I bumped into, was a head of delegation from Scotland. and the head of delegation from Finland. And the first thing she did was talk to me about Petanque 365 and how popular it is in her country, the thanks that she got for the streaming there. So, I know we go out there to represent England, and Petanque 365, we have connections to England, but we're quite proud that we're independent. There's people using our streams all over the world. I know the lady from Finland said she's rewatched it when we've played against her or even oppositions, or just to gain things from different players. Yeah, hopefully it's a good learning aid for all.
The one thing we have to be careful about, though, Gareth, is the Facebook changes that have happened where those videos get deleted after 28 days. So we're now much more disciplined. I've already downloaded all the women's ones because it's a bit of a risk that we could lose them, and that's would be a shame. So anyway, that I think ties up the Youth World Championships